Hot air. We are up long before the sun even thinks of raising its face to the African dawn. We pile into the Land Rover at 5:15 and begin the bumpy descent to the plains of the Masai Mara. This is the first undisturbed view I have had of the early morning without distraction of lights or the sliver of African moon lying on its back holding in the night. The night sky drips diamonds. Sparkle and twinkle are weak words indeed for what these stars really do. These stars are wet, they glisten. They occupy the entire sky from ridge to plain inside a tunnel of pitch. Hot, white light oozes through billions of pinpricks. This is our last day in the bush. Through 16 nights I had barely skimmed the night sky. I was always nervously glancing about me, watching out for night creatures or bugs in my path. But in the safety of the Range Rover, I stick my head far out windows without glass and crane up at the magnificent waterfall of light. A star breaks loose and streaks through the spray just for me, and I am satisfied that I have had the glimpse I was to be awarded this trip of the heavens, in a darkness that would never be truly dark. We arrive at our destination and we are told to stay put while we are registered and briefed. A Cape buffalo had charged our pilot earlier on that morning, just a few feet from where we stand. Luckily, a hot spotlight shone into his eyes had stopped him dead, or our ride would have been over for that day. We all huddle together in the darkness while our vehicles are readied. Today, I will battle the demon of acrophobia. I will climb into a basket and allow myself to be lifted into the pre-dawn air by brightly contained heat. At the beginning of our safari, Bwana had mentioned the balloon ride and asked who of us would go. My response had been an emphatic no way in hell. But that was eons ago. That was before I had braved the road to Tarangire while vomiting into a plastic bag. That was before I sat on the passenger side of our vehicle as our driver sped down the highway screwing around with a cell phone, cars coming at us from all directions, people crossing the road, and weaving in and out of dead dogs and trash. It had taken a full 5 days to master claustrophobia and give up the shotgun seat. By the time we arrived at Finch Hatton's, I was standing on the back seat, half hanging out to get that perfect shot. My most wicked of demons presented himself as we stood on the tiny runway and faced the impossibly small bush plane that would take us from Finch Hatton's in Savo to Larson's camp in Samburu. My fear of demon bugs was constant. Although I refused to take the malaria pills, which had the side effect of increased anxiety, as if I needed any more of that, I agonized over the required yellow fever shot, which I also declined. I have always had trouble with introducing a virus into my body in order to prevent it from entering. I was paranoid of mosquitoes. My alfresco repellent always at the ready, I feared running out before the end of the trip. While there were all kinds of flying, buzzy, crawly things at treetops, I saw only a handful of mosquitoes the whole trip, and thanks to my trusty alfresco, I was invisible to them. The height of my mosquito paranoia presented at a border town between Tanzania and Kenya. After 7 or so hours on the road, we arrived at the border, hot, tired, and nervous about customs and that most pressing need to pee. We disembarked and headed for the bathrooms. Bwana yelled out, "There are pay toilets!" I felt in my pocket for the ever-present supply of dollar bills, plucking one from the wad. The attendant stood at the doorway, and the other women hesitated because they had brought no money. I handed the girl my dollar and said, I was paying for everyone. The gratitude I had purchased with that one single dollar remained throughout the rest of the trip. I was third to file into the tiny bathroom. It held 2 real flush toilets. As I waited my turn, I scanned the room, and my radar immediately honed in on 3 mosquitoes buzzing about. I fled without hesitation. The alfresco I'd put on that morning had likely worn off, and I was at the threshold of freedom from the dreaded yellow fever, for which I had not been prepared. The shot was required only in Tanzania. Here I was, on the brink of breaking free from that fear, and had been seemingly led right into the last chance lair of the vector mosquito. For this was a border town. The residents were poor, with poor facilities and inadequate water. Yellow fever lives in these towns. It is prolific and propagates from the bite of the mosquito. I would literally have to hold my water another 4 hours until we reached camp. But I had beaten the bugs. So this morning, I will defy my final demon and soar above the treetops. When the balloon is nearly full of heated air, we climb into the basket. There are 4 compartments in the front and 4 in the back, with 3 people in each except ours, which holds 4. I choose the outside corner where I feel it would make me less claustrophobic. We are instructed to sit down on the bench, hold on to the handles in front of us, and brace our heads against the back of the basket during takeoff and landing. I feel quite secure. I can't see over the top anyway. I brace myself as our pilot adds a loud hot blast to the balloon. We lift into the air just as the first light breathes its first breath of the new day. I'm fine until we stand. This is when I realize the spot I have selected is not the most secure, but rather the most precarious. I have on me 2 sides of terror as I mistakenly look down at the ground falling away rapidly below us. I remember my terrifying experience with parasailing years before and lift my head to look forward, avoiding the look down. It is easy to do, for behind us the sun rises in the air with our balloon. The sky is clear of clouds on the horizon. The sun hovers above the blanket of dust that has covered her while she slept. Having never seen the sun rise from this vantage point, I am overwhelmed at the aurora that signals her arrival into this new day. Cradled by the darker layer below, her strength builds upward, and her own light gives thanks to the opportunity with outstretched arms. I feel Mom beside me as we both take it all in. To our right floats our sister balloon, which tells me of our height without me having to cast an eye to the dread of down. She is glorious on the wave of air we cannot see. I am reminded of what scuba diving is like once one has mastered neutral buoyancy. All one needed to do was to breathe in to lift over the coral heads and exhale to gain a closer look. This is what we are doing, only the lungs are huge and colorful and the breath very hot and loud. I had imagined this to be a quiet ride through the air. Quiet it is not. Beautiful, however, it is, as we float over the dawning day. The animals below are in a quandary and try to run away without knowing what it is they are running from or where it is, since they never look up at us. We see giraffe and Cape buffalo, wildebeest and impala and zebra, and hippos showing us their speed as they race through the watering holes. The ride is brief, only about 45 minutes, and it goes quickly. We are instructed that the landing might be a bit rough and told to take our landing positions. We face the rear of the basket, a good thing, since when we hit hard and are dragged over bumpy ground just before the basket tips, and we find ourselves with our backs to the earth, faces to the sky. Below us, facing the ground, are the unfortunate ones in the front. As I climb out of the basket to solid ground once again, I feel an exhilarating rush and my chest swells with pride that I had done it. I had soared through the air on the wings of a balloon. I feel Mom's hand slip into mine, and we both cast an unseen glance down to where my last demon lay below the basket, crushed and tattered. Then I look at my own feet to see the cheetah slippers Mom has placed there. I had earned them. Now I must face Oz, and the Emerald City, and a cat of a different color.